let's turn it over to Martin Anderson Klutz for our module of the week. Martin is a senior solutions engineer at Acquia and a maintainer of a number of Drupal modules and recipes of his own. Martin, take it away.
Thanks, John. Have you ever wanted to use Drupal's views interface to allow visitors to browse and navigate data from another source? There's a module for that. It's called Views JSON Source, and it was created in April of 2020 by Pradeep Venugopal, or goes by Venugop, but recent releases are by Victor Holovacek, who goes by Aston Victor and is a member of the Ukraine Drupal community. It has a 2.0.2 version available, which is compatible with Drupal 8.8 and newer, all the way up to Drupal 11. Now, it is actively maintained and has security coverage. Doesn't have a lot in the way of documentation, but there is a pretty lengthy README to help you get started. And it has 17 open issues, 4 of which are bugs against the current branch, although one of those recently had a fix merged in. And actually, that was just in the last week, which is all pretty good considering that the module is officially in use by 1,641 sites, according to Drupal.org. Now, after installing the module, you can create a view and specify it to show JSON instead of some kind of content entity. In the view settings, you can then provide a URL for where to retrieve the JSON and an optional APath value to indicate a section of the data to show. It also supports contextual filters, so you can create a single view that will show different sections of data depending on the path used to access it. From there, you can build out your view in the normal way, using fields to specify what data should be shown and how, filters to limit which rows will be shown, and sort criteria to specify the order in which it will be listed. And of course, the ability to expose controls for users to filter and sort the data in ways that meet their own needs makes this an extremely powerful way to make data available to your site's visitors. Now, we spoke a couple of episodes ago about how powerful it can be to use Drupal as the glass or experience layer through which visitors can interact with other systems. And I think this is another great example of that. So let's talk about Views JSON Source.
When Martin started talking about this module, I thought it was a way to export your JSON out through views, which I was kind of like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know a use case for that. But now that I know that it's an ingestion method for you to ingest JSON feeds, I'm like, holy moly, let's use this everywhere.
Well, I'm speechless. There's many reasons why you would want to expose your Drupal data as a JSON feed, including decoupled sites. But I was going to say, this is kind of like the opposite of that. This is recoupling your site almost. It's pulling stuff in. I think my only question is, and if you haven't used this, you might not be able to answer, is, what's the performance like on this? I imagine the more dynamic filters you add or expose filters, the slower it is. But do you know about caching or how that works?
So I believe you can sort of specify caching settings for it. And so, depending on, I think it tends to be time-based. Obviously, you wouldn't be able to use cache tags in the same way that you would if the data was sort of natively housed within Drupal. But I would expect that, provided you have some kind of a sensible caching strategy there, it shouldn't be too bad, except for obviously that first request where you've got sort of, the dependency on the initial data source in addition to, whatever processing has to be done by views afterwards. Now, that being said, I have also worked on sites previously where, the site was actually using, JSON data that was generated by a third-party system and actually existed on the same site. So there wasn't sort of like a lag for the JSON to be generated by some kind of a remote system. It was basically a flat file. So, depending on the strategy and where else that data lives, there might not be much of a performance hit at all.
I think another nice use case for this too, even as an admin tool, is if you are ingesting content from a third-party source, sometimes you want to slice that data differently, and that generally requires a developer to modify it. But if you expose this through some sort of view, you can have like a product manager or somebody else look at it and slice the data away and be like, oh, you know what, this is what we need to integrate into our system. That's an actual that's actually ingesting the information. they can kind of see the raw data coming through and filter how they want, and then make informed decisions. And rather than kind of having to sit with a developer and like manually look through raw JSON, which is never pleasant. So I could see use cases for this, even if it's not the end user that's finally seeing it, and there's some sort of intermediary process or migration or something. So yeah, pretty cool.
It's an interesting connection to the topic today, actually, Martin, right? And that, not to jump ahead, but today we're talking about progressive migration, and you'll see in a few minutes that I'm actually talking about delivering a single website from two different websites at one time, a Drupal 7 site and a Drupal 10 site. This kind of module would be great on, let's say, the Drupal 10 site, where I haven't quite migrated some content from the Drupal 7 site, but I need it to show on the Drupal 10 site. I could set up the JSON feed on the 7 site and pull it in with the view on the 10 site. So in that situation, I'm in complete control of both sides.
Yeah, interesting. I wasn't sure if there'd be a connection, but it did occur to me that could be a potential way to leverage that. So that's very interesting.
Yep.
Sorry, I was just thinking that maybe the Talking Drupal site could use this module to import our Trello board information, so we could do a running list of like next shows coming up on the website from the Trello board that we use. Just looking to see if Trello offers a JSON export, which they do. So yeah. And also I was thinking about Google Calendars. I'm like, oh, you could probably import your Google Calendar that way too if you wanted to. But anyway, just two possible use cases for the audience out there.
Although the key is it's not an import, right?
Well, that's true. It's not an import. It's more of just an ability to view the data. But I mean, like, it's I don't know, and a way to make it nicer for front ends of sites to use, I suppose. Right. All right. Well, that was very topical and definitely got my wheels turning. So thank you, as always, Martin, for finding something that is on topic and thought provoking. If folks wanted to connect or suggest a module of the week, how could they go about doing that?
Thanks, John. We are always happy to get nominations for Module of the Week in the Talking Drupal channel of Drupal Slack, or folks can reach out to me directly as ManClue on all of the Drupal and social platforms.